Okay, today we're going to take this Ohio River Jack and grind it down into a clip point. One of the key things here is to keep from overheating the blade. If you overheat the blade, you've heard the expression, you ruin the temper. Well, there's several parts to the heat treating process. One part is you heat the knife up to temperature, then after you soak it at that temperature for a certain amount of time, you either quench it in oil or you quench it between some thick aluminum plates, which that's called an air quench. So you can do an oil quench or an air quench. After that, you have to temper the blade. You have to put it back in the oven at a much lower temperature. See, in the heat treating process, in the first step, you want the steel to reach its full potential hardness. And then in the tempering process, you want to bring it back to a usable hardness. You have to reach the full hardness in order for the molecular transformation to be complete in the steel and have the best possible blade. But at that extreme level of hardness, the steel will be too brittle. So we have to pull back the hardness. Now, for example, on carbon steels, I'll use temperatures around 350 to 500 degrees to do that. So you don't have to get that hot in order to ruin the heat treat. So one of the key things here is use a new belt and use an aggressive belt. This is an 80 grit belt, and 60 grit would be even better. If you use a worn belt or a belt that's too fine, you're going to have the knife in contact with the belt for too long a period of time. You're going to cause more friction, you're going to overheat it, and you're going to damage the heat treat in the knife. Another important thing is just keep stopping and dipping it in water to keep it cool. It's okay if you're overly paranoid about this. It's better to be safe than be sorry. Okay, so where we had the tape on here, I'm going to make a line with a Sharpie, and we'll go to that line. Then I'll remove this tape, and we'll start grinding. I'm going to clamp a piece of wood back here to stop the sander from sliding. Now we have something we can push against. Okay, this is what it looks like so far. We've got a nice point. That looks pretty good. I don't want to go any closer to the nail nick. I'm going to run it on the sander to change the direction of the scratch pattern. We were sanding with the belt running this way. I want the scratch pattern to be this way. There's the clip point. And we fixed the end some. But now we're going to have to do a little more work on that end on here to polish it up to match the rest of the blade. So what I started with was these green 80 grit belts. This is an aftermarket belt for the Worksharp Pro, Canungian edition. You don't have to actually get the Worksharp brand belts. There's a lot of other options available. So those are 80. Then I have a package of 120 grit. And a package of 240 grit. These belts have a lot of bite. I'm going to try the 240 grit. We shouldn't have to do much to them. Straighten out the scratch pattern. That's about all I'm going to do on the belt sander. The rest we'll do by hand on stones. A little bit more to go. M390 is some pretty hard stuff. It's very wear resistant. It was even hard grinding with the belt sander. It takes a lot more to remove material, even on these diamond stones. I freehand sharpened some M390 blades on these. I have a video that I might put up. It's probably about 45 minutes long to reprofile an edge and bring it down to a much lower angle than factory. It was on the Lion Steel Best Man. Took it down to maybe around 25 degrees inclusive. Ever so slightly more obtuse than the Scandies. Scandies are 11 degrees per side or 22 degrees inclusive. Putting a low bevel angle on a knife really improves the cutting performance dramatically. Time to go back to the redstone. It's okay to put a little bit of water on your diamond stones. Helps to keep things lubricated, keeps the particles floating so nothing gets plugged up. I would advise drying them off when you're finished. Make sure they're good and dry, because it is a steel backer. The diamonds are put into nickel plating, and that's how they're attached. Hit these edges. This is very sharp. These edges here are too sharp. onto the greenstone. The greenstone should be roughly 1200 grit. It's starting to look a lot better. Do a little bit more. It's looking a lot better. It's not too sharp anymore. It's time to move on to a strop. I think we're going to call that good. I'm not going to go to the 8 micron strop. If I go any finer, the quality of the finish will be glossier than the rest of the blade. That matches nicely, so I'm going to stop there, and we'll just make a few passes here on the knife. I like to switch to the left hand so that I can see the gap between the blade and the leather. There wasn't enough light in the garage, so I figured I'd come inside to show you the results. This is the Ohio River jack after being ground down to a clip point. We'll see if I can pick this up on the camera. On the spine, there's a slight bevel. As you can see, I transferred that bevel all the way down the edge that I ground. Same thing on the other side. I know it's hard to see, but I think you can pick it up right there. Also on the finish, I stopped at 16 micron because the finish that was on the spine of the blade is about the same as a 16 micron finish here. So as you can see, this knife looks like it came this way from the factory. I tried a few different things with this. I tried doing some carving, and now this knife excels at carving. Before, you couldn't get in with the tip and get in and turn. You couldn't get in and turn. It was too blunt and it was too big. It didn't fit in areas. Now it's a pleasure to carve with. You also gain the ability to pierce objects. Now, it is a slip joint. It's not locking, so as you pierce, you should put some forward pressure, but you can pierce through and cut things. Overall, I find this blade much more useful in my daily life than what a spear point is. At least a blunt spear point like this had. I think this knife turned out beautifully. It looks so much better than it did with the spear point, and I wish they would offer this as a model in their lineup. This is a slip from traditional pocket knives. I like this slip a lot. The design is nice. Even the cutouts on the bottom, which allow it to expand. So as you squeeze it, it expands and then it contracts. So I made my own. If I'm going to be carrying a modified knife, I may as well carry my own slip. So this is the same design with a few subtle improvements. This area here is wider. And also, instead of just simply cutting the leather off, I punched holes and then cut it off. So you have a rounded section in here rather than you can see an actual little slice down there right on the corner. This should be a longer lasting design, as leather doesn't like to have those slices. I mean, it's probably splitting hairs. I don't think, if this one lasts 20 years, this one might last 25 years. Let me show you how this works. You drop the knife in. Even if I just squeeze the slip, it'll go right down. When I turn it upside down, it stays in there. When I squeeze, it drops right out. I don't even have to try and reach inside to get the knife out. It's just a perfect design. I love these slips. Works the same way as this one. Squeeze it, drop it right in. It'll stay there until you squeeze it and it falls right out. So let me know what you guys think. Tell me what you think down in the comments. Do you like this clip point modification? Or do you like spear points better? How about the Warren Cliff? Or do you prefer a sheep's foot? What's your favorite blade design?